There we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Let's see here. Hello. All right. My laptop was not turning on and I was panicking and I'm moving a little bit slower. I was in the hospital. So I'm not feeling too great. Um, And I was like, oh, great. Now my laptop won't turn on, but it came on. So, oh, okay, we're good. So let's see. This is our living room library. So I was like, well, this might be a nice backdrop for today. So yeah, and then I can take the opportunity to show you some really great plant books as well. Um, yeah. Uh, thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, I've been feeling kind of off and then I was feeling really off. Like I thought maybe I was coming down with like a sinus infection or a virus or something like that. But then I was having a hard time breathing and I have problems like with my lungs and things. So I ended up going to the hospital, poked and prodded and scanned and thankfully they ruled out anything crazy, but they just ended up as telling me I have to go see a bunch of specialists to kind of get to the bottom of it. So I was like, all right. So continuing with the discomfort. um, but yeah, hopefully I have a bunch of exams lined up. So like starting tomorrow. So with like cardiologist and my pulmonologist, a hematologist, an allergist, immunologist. um, and so we're gonna get down to the bottom of it. We're gonna figure this out. Um, but I took it pretty easy, took it really easy this weekend. And by our home, there was actually a plant swap yesterday. So we decided to saunter over there and just to check it out. And so I took a couple cuttings. I took a piece of my copper spoon, Kalanchoe. I took a rooted piece of my fern leaf cactus, and I took some cuttings of my Serrapigia, but my string of needles that had some little rhizomes on it. Um, so that I would have something to offer folks. And I got some really cool plants. It was a nice, just calm Sunday. But I wanted to show you some of the things that we were able to get. So there were some pieces that were for trade and some pieces that were for sale. So I was able to get for trade for the fern leaf cactus. Um, we got this, and I think it's just so adorable. So it's a philodendron, a tapapoense. So these get these really long leaves. They have really beautiful red backs, a really gorgeous philodendron. It's one of Brian's favorites. And I've never seen one this tiny. And so one of the people traded it for the fern leaf cactus that I rooted. Because here it's a little harder to find fern leaf cactus. So it was a really cool trade. But look at the size of this thing. It's super tiny. I've never seen an Atapuaense this small. Um, I've always seen them kind of like at least like that big, maybe 3 times the size of this. So seeing it this tiny is definitely adorable. And it has new growth coming in. So here you could see has little new leaf coming in, and you can really see that burgundy on the back of the leaves there. It's a very, very beautiful philodendron. So excited to add this one. We had a larger one that we lost to thrips. Not this thrip infestation that we recently had, but the previous one. So what was really cool is that one of the people who organized the plant swap is actually someone who specializes in beneficial insects. So all of these plants were treated with beneficial insects. And so it's just super cool. And now that location, it's a pet shop. It's only a couple minutes walk. They're carrying a bunch of insects too. So they're carrying a bunch of different types of isopods and things like that. So of course I was really excited. Yeah, so we're gonna enjoy that. And then I got this guy for free as a trade. It's a little Syngonium, really adorable. Grab this little guy. So I'm kind of slowly building up my Syngonium collection again. I lost them to thrips, but they do require a little bit more care than some other plants do. And I don't want to rush and start getting all of them, and then that's a very big time commitment. So I was like, slowly. So I have a John O'Carty Road that is growing and is beautiful, and I'm like, okay, I'll get one more. So I just got that one, and we'll see. They were also doing corms. So it's very similar to a bulb. And so alocasias, they have corms. They also produce corms. So they'll have the mother plant and then she'll produce corms. So they had some corms of variegated varieties. And so they had a Alocasia frydek variegata. Brian has one, and it has a couple leaves, like 2 or 3 leaves. But this was a corm. And so they have it with some plastic here to keep the humidity in. But let me see if you can see. It's like this little thing right here, and it's starting to come out. So it has this little green tip right there. So it's just like a little, it looks like a nut, almost like a little nut. And it's starting to break through and come through, and it looks like it's a mix of like sphagnum moss with some orchid bark. And so super cool. And keeping the plastic on there to keep that humidity in there. And then this one, that's the frydek. And then this is the macrorrhiza. So these are the alocasias, the variegated alocasias that get the really big leaves. I had one years ago. Gosh, I had one in 2017, 2018, when they first started kind of getting big. Let me see here. And yeah, I had it for a while. And I think trying to remember what it was that caused its demise, because it was so beautiful. I think it started getting burned. I moved it away. Yeah, from the light. Yeah, mine had a lot of white on it, and that was unfortunate because it was just not doing very well. But here is this corm, and it's a little bit more green starting to come out. And this is the macrorrhiza. So Brian's excited about these. So these are corms that he's going to be taking on. And then we already have a Paraíso Verde. It's a type of philodendron, but they had it there. So they had some plants for sale, and they wanted $5 for it. So I, of course, had to take it. And I really liked the setup. So that made me want to take it even more. So $5, here we go, $5. So philodendron Paraíso Verde reverted. So these usually have a nice amount of white, like not white necessarily, it's more of like a creamy green. But we have one in our kitchen that has some nice modeling on it. And this one's reverted, but I really like the leaf shape. And it's putting out another leaf right here. And look at this. So isn't this really interesting? So it's a bunch of layers. So the base was horticultural charcoal with leca. Then there's a layer of perlite. And then there's a layer of stratum. So I have not worked with stratum before. It's something that's been on my wish list, but I have not tried stratum. So this is all stratum. This whole section is stratum. And then on the top, it's leca with sphagnum moss. So with some coco coir. It's very interesting lasagna in this method. You can actually see the roots. Let me see. Here we go. You can see the root system. So look how it goes through those layers. And so that's the goal, right? Is that it moves through those layers. It looks great. There is a little bit of algae. She had this in a grow under a grow light, so you could see the green tint. So this is algae. It doesn't look like it's taking over, so I'm not too worried. Because one thing you want to be very wary of is if you have your plants in glass, either in water or even this type of setup, you can get algae growing. And algae is going to compete with your roots for oxygen. So it's going to end up trying to spread, and then it's going to basically steal all the water and nutrients and oxygen from your roots. So you want to be very, very careful about that. But this was such a super cool setup. So I grabbed it for $5. I was like, this was interesting. And so let's see. And then this one I grabbed, and this one was on sale for $15. So that was one of the more expensive ones. And I just knew I had to have it. So I love Skindapsis. And so I have quite a couple varieties of Skindapsis. And I really, really wanted this one. Back in like 2021, I had one of these. It just, I didn't realize that when I got it, it was like in this type of medium that I thought was great because it looked like it was pushing out new growth. And I had put it into my greenhouse cabinet. And so my greenhouse cabinet, it helps you keep in moisture, right? That's the purpose, or it's to keep the humidity up high. And I didn't realize that. And so that the substrate was not very well draining. And so what ended up happening is that it only had one node. And so it ended up rotting at the base. So I was really sad about it because I had really wanted one of these, but I had paid $25 for it. And so it was even better finding this for $15 that's rooted in a really well draining substrate with new growth coming in. So I definitely was excited to find it because after that rare plant shop by us, Planted by Christy, closed down, we have one shop called NYC Succulents that's kind of starting to take over that niche. They're starting to bring in some more rare plants, which is fun. But they tend to get like a lot of the same one and so it'll probably be a while before I can get some really cool Skindapsis. So this is the Skindapsis Silver Hero. So look at that silver new growth coming in. I mean, look at that. So I knew I had to grab it. She put this little seashell in it. But it's so pretty. So I knew. What are you guys doing? Jules is running around. He has the zoomies. But yeah, so pretty. So added another Skindapsis to the collection. But yeah, and that was it. I think we made out like bandits. Really. I mean, for $20 we got the Paraíso Verde, the Skindapsis, Silver Hero, and then we got a bunch of those little free mini plants. And you know, for our cuttings. So the copper spoon Kalanchoe. I had a leaf that had fallen off of my big copper spoon, so it was already starting to push out like a baby plant, and it had roots. Then my fern leaf cactus that was nice and well rooted. And then, hello, Jules. Hold on. Hi. Hold on. He decided he wanted to he wants to join. My fern leaf cactus, and what else did I take? Oh, and cuttings from the Ceropigia string of needles, which yeah, it's getting a little bit harder to find. This is Jules Verne. Okay. And he has the zoomies right now, so he's literally running around. He's running from the front door into the bedroom, into the kitchen, and then back. I don't know what's going on, but he decided he wanted to join me. Hello, buddy. But yeah, he's a very large cat. Let me see if I can get him in here. He's a very large cat. Thank you, Jules. He's feeling very lovey right now. Okay, buddy, I have to put you down. You're a very heavy cat. I can't exactly keep you propped up here. Alrighty, I'm gonna put you down. Oh, okay. All right, buddy, come on. Here we go. Yeah, he was our first cat, so yeah, he's huge. Let me see here. Yeah, no, that's very true. Suzanne, yeah, they've been very since I got back from the hospital, they have been very cuddly. So I think yeah, I think that's it, that they kind of sense that something's off. Like my cat Mozart, he keeps wanting to like be by my side and coming over and stuff, and the same with Maple. So they've been like very in Spanish they say como chicle, like gum, that they've been like gum for the last couple days. Definitely it's been odd, a little more cuddly than usual. But yeah, so I wanted to take it slow today, but I can show you some really great plant books. So I actually also, here behind me, I can show you something real quick. I have my oblique here. I had it in my cabinet and it started getting burned by the light, and so I lost 2 leaves and it started getting burned. So it was putting out this leaf, got slightly burned here, and I don't know why. I had an old oblique that I had in there that didn't seem to mind the grow light, but this one did not like it. So I put it here and it's been doing so much better. So it has a whole runner going. So this is the oblique, and I'm gonna keep it here because it seems to be happy here. This room is about 49% humidity right now. Um, but it seems very happy, and it's getting this like ambient light. So there's no grow light over here, but you can see it's getting the sunlight from the western window. And this is about, God, like 7 or 8 feet away from it. So it's still pretty bright because you can even see the shine on the mayoi here. But it's not like full on, and so I think that's why it's a lot happier here. And I have an Adansonii next to it that's pushing out a bunch of new growth after I put it here. So it didn't have these top leaves here. These are brand new. Um, but it's a cool example just for you to see the difference. So this is the Adansonii wide form, which I really, really like these leaves. I think they're so beautiful. And then the Monstera, so the Monstera Adansonii, Monstera obliqua. But the leaves are just, you could see it's like they're much more squiggly. And the holes are much bigger in comparison to these. But these are super cool. It just shot this like huge huge growth vine upwards. It's not even like I put this little glass stirrer here to just kind of hold up the base here, and it just shot up. It just crazy shot up. So and it looks like there's going to be another leaf emerging as well. So I have no idea. It really likes this spot. So I'm going to keep it happy, keep it here. But I have both these Monstera here, and then this giant philodendron mayoi behind me over here. But yeah, this is our main library here in the house. And so we have one bookcase over there, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 4. um Diana, yes, Monstera and philodendron are both aeroids. So they're both related, so they're kind of cousins. Scindapsus as well. So Scindapsus, epiprenums, which are pothos, are aeroids as well. Yeah, and the philodendrons. So all types of philodendrons. So whether they're the vining types or the upright or the climbing, yeah. So what is the substrate for those? Yeah, so the obliqua is in coco coir with lava rock, with I think the cellar, I got that one from NYC Succulents. And the cellar he uses also like a tree fern mix. And it has like leca and perlite in there. It's a very chunky, nice mix. And then this mix is more is like a succulent soil. So this was a mix that I put together, and it was like a base of succulent soil, wood chips, not activated charcoal, horticultural charcoal, leca. I think that's basically it. Yeah. So just a big chunky mix, but it's been doing great. So I had changed the mix because the mix that it came with was like a peat and coco coir. It just was holding in a lot of moisture, and it lost 2 of the bottom leaves. So I was getting very nervous that it was holding too much water. And I had it for a few weeks by then. So I said, okay, I'll change it. So I switched it out. And then I put the little glass stirrer to kind of hold it up while it was kind of rerooting and establishing itself. And then I put it back here so it wasn't getting direct light. And then it just started shooting out growth. So it seems pretty happy. It happened so quickly. So I thought I saw like the little shoot of the new leaf. And as soon as the new leaf was unfurling, it was shooting out another leaf. And that was in the span of not even like, it's like been just a little over a week since I put it here. So it happened very quickly. Um, I was literally telling Brian, I was like, that's a new leaf already. And then it was like on Wednesday, I looked over and I went, Brian, there's a second new leaf. So so we were both very like, what's happening? It just shot up. It just shot up. Um, yeah. Oh, and Darlene, yes. Yeah, I'm just not feeling very well. I have like a lot of chest tightness. I've been having problems like breathing and stuff. And so we'll find out. We'll find out. The they did a CT scan and I was glad because I have a history of pulmonary embolisms, which is why they were like taking it like, okay, we need to get you scanned. And thankfully there was no embolisms. So that's a good thing. But yeah, now I have to go to a bunch of doctor's appointments because some of their tests they said was kind of some odd results, but nothing like life threatening immediately. So they were like, you don't have to stay in the hospital you can just go to your own specialists. So I was like, okay, so that's what I'm doing. So now I have the next 2 weeks basically full of doctor's appointments. So I'm hoping that the blood tests that they did works for the doctors because I don't want to get poked and more poked and prodded. But I did want to show you, I have here, here we go. So I will take you to here we go. So this is my shelf of guides. So there's so many guides and also my matching card games. So I have this one's for birds, and then these are all for flowers. And then these are all my guides. So there's more guides behind there. So these are guides I've collected over the years. I really recommend any Peterson's guide that you can get your hands on. The Audubon guides are also really, really great. The Audubon Society guides. So definitely check those out. Those are absolutely wonderful. Now, if you're trying to get something a little bit more, let's say with I'm trying to see if I put it. Yeah, these are my, so down here are a bunch of herbal guides here. I'm trying to see where I think I put them behind here. So if my stack of Peterson guides, there we go. So I think I'm gonna make a list of these because these are super helpful. I have like around the world in 80 plants and around the world in 80 trees. So those are really, really great. If you're trying to kind of just start get to know botany though, I think it's behind these. This is like my stack of Petersons and Sibleys. There we go. So there's Botanical Latin. Great. That's a really, really great book. Let me see. That one, the Botanical Latin book. Oh, and then this one. The Portable Latin for Gardeners. If I can get it out here. Hold on, let me take my little Lego down before we have Legos all around. It's a great decompression thing for me is making Legos. I like to buy Lego sets. And yeah. So you find them all around. The shelves are just miniature Lego sets. But this one this is a really great pocket guide if you want to just start to get into botanical Latin. So if you're trying to learn a little bit more about plants, I really recommend, even if just getting a small book on botanical Latin, because you will find yourself, if you start reading guidebooks with botanical keys, you're going to need to have a little bit of that botanical Latin down, because the jargon, like the words that they're using, it can get a little bit it can get a little bit difficult to understand. Um, I just muted. I think someone someone was unmuted. Um, but yeah, the portable Latin is a really great place to start. So I was gonna ask if anyone would like me to do a botanical Latin class during this class, because I'm happy to do so. So I can kind of throw in a couple of botanical, like more botanical classes, kind of spattered in here, so I can teach some like botanical Latin, at least like the basics of botanical Latin, um, and kind of get more into botanical structure, like leaf structure and stems and roots and things like that. I keep forgetting, almost all my books have leaves in them. So this one's really beautiful. These are ginkgo biloba. So these are ginkgo leaves, giant ginkgo leaves. This is another big one. Whoops. So biloba, signifying these two lobes. So let me put this book here. So two lobes. So this is considered a lobe, and this is considered a lobe. And so they're separated. So imagine these are the peaks, and they're separated by this valley, which is called a sinus. And so two lobes. So ginkgo biloba. Now, sometimes you'll find leaves that barely have a sinus. Maybe it's like right up here. So they just don't have a very defined sinus. But they still technically have two lobes. But these were just such great examples. I think I got these from Central Park. Central Park has some really, really old ginkgos. So they're great. In the fall, they turn this beautiful gold and yellow. So if you're looking for some really nice leaves to preserve, ginkgo leaves preserve really beautifully, as you can see. Now these are old. These are pretty old. Oh, that's wonderful. Absolutely. It does look like our brain. Oh yes, absolutely. I will hold the book up longer, Synth. No problem. Just real quick point about these. It does look like a brain. And if you look closely, you can see these stripes, right? So like these ridges that look like the veins. And I was just reading a really cool paper about how, so these are really old ancient tree that was around in the times of the dinosaurs, super old tree. And one theory is that these were actually had needles before, and that the needles fused to form these flat fan-like leaves. So I thought that was super cool, because if you do feel them, it does feel like these individual ridges. Maybe you kind of hear that if the microphone can pick that up. So so I thought that was a super cool theory about the ridges, that they were actually needles that fused together. So that's cool. So I'll keep an eye out to see if they're able to prove that. But here, this is the Portable Latin for Gardeners by James Armitage. I really recommend this if you're just starting out, because I have some really big Latin, like botanical Latin books that I mean are wonderful, but they might be a little intimidating if you're just starting. So if you're just starting, this is really great. So it's called A Portable Latin for Gardeners. And what I really like about it, it's broken down in terminology based on different aspects of the plant. So colors, shapes. This one is like taste and smell, and there's a beautiful, beautiful artwork with definitions and even like little descriptors. So it kind of works like a little dictionary. And so it'll actually show you how to pronounce them, what they mean. And it's just there's over 1,500 different terms here. And so absolutely worth getting. Here, like natural objects, so plants that look like certain things. So really, really great book. So if you're just starting out, a portable Latin for gardeners. And another really great book. Let me see, it's on this side. I think it's on this side. So here we go. If you'd like to kind of dive into more of the background about plants, learn a little bit more about plant intelligence, I kind of just wanted, and also like a little bit on like the work that's being done with plants, in terms of like the scientific discoveries and things like that. Brilliant Green is a great little short book to check out. Highly recommend this one. Really, really great book. Michael Pollan does the foreword. I have a couple of Michael Pollan's books. I think that, yeah, The Omnivore's Dilemma in Defense of Food. Really, he's awesome. He's awesome. And he did the foreword here. It's a really, really short but sweet book. And of course, I have leaves in this book. Some type of white oak. So I think, yeah, if you ever were to borrow any of my books, you will open them and just have leaves fall all over you, because almost all of my books have leaves in them, because usually I take them to parks or things like that, and then of course I end up using them to house the cool leaves that I find, and I still do that to this day. Even our in the car, Brian has like a car manual thing that he has in the glove compartment. It's full of flowers. So it's been like when we had our one of our last road trips, every time we would make like a stop and I'd find a plant that I was like, what is this? I'm not familiar with this. I'd take pictures, and then I would take one and I'd put it into the manual to press it. And so recently I had pulled something out of the glove compartment, and I was like, oh yeah. So I have to switch all of those out into I have a couple of old encyclopedias that I use for flower pressing. They make really, really great for pressing. And I can totally do a class on pressing too, if that's interesting. And Judy, what will you do with all your leaves? Yes, so I've been building my own herbarium, and so I don't have it accessible to me at this moment because it's all the way at the top. But yeah, what I basically do is I take these after they're nice and dried. I take them and place them onto like a really cool type of like paper. And then I write all the botanical information. So what is the plant? Any like characteristics in terms of the plant. And if I can recall, I put the location. So some of these I had stuffed in here. I don't know the location, but then I can still try to identify it. So yeah, so I have like a binder, and when you open it up, it's a bunch of different plant species. And so I've been transferring them I haven't touched it in a couple months, so I definitely want to get back to that. But yeah, no, I'd love to have just my own kind of sample set. A lot of the plants that I collect are medicinal. And so I want to get some types of certifications. And so I have to, my herbarium with medicinal plants, I have to have like about 600 species. um, and so yeah, I've been slowly but surely building that up. And I mean, and a lot of the ones I grab aren't necessarily medicinal. I just think they look really interesting. Um, but I still want to give them their own little spotlight page. But I really recommend old dictionaries and old encyclopedias. Yes, Judy, perfect. Acid-free paper. Exactly. That's what it is. It's acid-free paper. And so it's just paper that's just going to help and not deteriorate the specimen. Um, so yeah, and you have to be very mindful if you're building your herbarium as well that there are certain types of pests that love to eat them, like dermestid beetles or things like that. So just be very, very careful, and kind of look at them fairly often if you can, maybe at least every couple weeks, so that you make sure there's nothing trying to eat your leaves. And when I was doing my volunteer work at the New York Botanical Gardens herbarium, what they do, which I wish I could do, but that would be a lot. But they actually freeze their specimens for a few months on a cycle. So it's like they'll take stacks, and they'll kind of freeze them for a couple weeks, and then they kind of cycle them like that, and it's to kill any potential like larvae or beetles, eggs, anything like that, so that it doesn't, it won't kind of completely damage their collections. And they do this also with their insect pressings as well, like insect not pressings, like they have dioramas with preserved insects, and they do that too. And so yeah, and I was so sad to discover a lot of like the mushroom samples that I was going through and cataloging. I would open up the little pouch that would have, it's like a little envelope that would have the samples, and in some of the cases it was dust. And you could see the molts. So when insects, when they're growing, kind of like snakes, right, they shed their skin. So they shed their exoskeletons specifically for insects, and you could see the remnants in there. And yeah, I was pretty bummed about that. And so that's when I started learning about that aspect of keeping the herbarium safe, which was freezing the samples intermittently kind of throughout the year. They would just cycle them out, and just a couple times a year, so that yeah, they could kind of keep down those pest issues. Never even realized that, never even thought about that. But dermestid beetles, so we're always very careful because we feed our reptiles and our frogs, as well our amphibians, crickets. And sometimes, depending on where you get your crickets from, sometimes there are dermestid larvae in with the crickets. They don't hurt the crickets. They usually are eating kind of what the crickets, like the debris that the crickets leave behind. But when people are putting the crickets in the bag for you to bring home, I've found dermestid beetles in there, or dermestid larvae. And so I always like let the crickets out, and then I throw the bag away with the dermestid larvae, because I'm terrified of it getting out and ruining my things. Because in the office I have quite a few preserved insects. And then we have just a couple things around the house that are taxidermied. And so they would attack anything that's like taxidermied. They'll eat paper, leaves, anything like that. So yeah, nervous about that. So but if you are doing this on your own and you're just starting out, I mean, honestly, best types of paper are like the old dictionaries and the old encyclopedias to start off. And then it's a little bit more manageable if you have them all in one book. Let me see, I think I have one here because I was just reorganizing this one. Yeah. So this old encyclopedia. And so the paper is just super thin, super thin paper, and it's perfect. It's perfect for dehydrating. It lets a lot more air come through. And I just find that the pieces are just much more well preserved. I'm trying to see here. This was a monstera leaf, and look at that. So pretty nice and intact, huge leaf. Holy moly. But yeah. Mothballs. That's a good, yeah, like the paper in Bibles. Yep. Yeah, with mothballs, so I don't really worry about moths, but I'm not sure. I can see if mothballs would kind of ward off any other little like paper eating critters. I want to see if I can get my hands on neem leaves. So not neem oil, but the neem yeah, like the actual leaves. So you can put neem leaves in your older books. And that was actually a common use to keep any, insects from chewing on the paper. So I definitely want to get some neem leaves and try that with like some of my really old books. But yeah, I really like this leaf. This is really cool, actually. Yeah, Linda, like a tissue paper texture, not a hot press finish. Yeah, you want to avoid glossy paper. So definitely don't use any paper like magazine paper. It locks in moisture and you'll actually rot your leaves out. But it's a really fun way for some of your like favorite plants, your house plants even, if they lose a leaf and you kind of want to preserve it. I do want to try skeletonizing leaves. So I might wait to see if one of my plants drops a leaf that looks really perfect for me to try that. So you kind of let it sit in water, from my understanding. I would have to look up a tutorial. But it looks like you kind of let it sit in water. I'm not sure if you add anything to the water, but you let it sit in water. And then you kind of go over it, and with your fingers, you're kind of removing the flesh, kind of like all the like the green matter, the starchy matter. And what's left behind is like the cellulose, is kind of like the scaffolding of the leaf. So it looks like a skeleton. It looks super cool. It's like all the veins and things like that stay, and all of the excess tissue kind of just rots away. And you're left with a cool skeleton of the leaf. So that's something I want to try. I haven't tried that yet. So that is something that I would really like to kind of dig into. But yeah, I love using these old encyclopedias for this. And these two books here. So this one, I've probably shown you before. Oh, good question. Linda's asking, maybe a lye product, maybe. I'll look. It's definitely, it's called skeletonizing leaves. So I have to look up. Yeah. Suzanne was saying that there are YouTube channels. Yeah. So that's something I really want to try. I've never tried it. I've seen videos on it. And it's one of those like I need to try that kind of things. I've probably shown you this book before. It's called What a Plant Knows, by Daniel Tramovitz. And this book is amazing. He kind of equates the senses that you see in people, and how that manifests in plants. So how do plants feel? So how do they respond to stimulus? How do they get stimulus? Like how do they touch, right? How do they hear, right? How do they see? So how is it that they respond to light? How do they taste? And he talks about some like parasitic plants and their ability to literally taste the host plants. So I think he was talking about the dodder plant, Dodder, and they did an experiment where it loves tomato plants, and so they made like a slurry of a tomato plant and then they were using like Q-tips. And so they kind of put one swab in one place, and they put like another barley or something like that in another place, and it was like always going towards the tomato plants. So really, really interesting on how they can sense like the chemical makeup, and they were kind of going. It's like it could taste the tomato plant. So it's super cool the way that he puts this book. And what's even better is he does a free course that's available online about this book. And so it's available on Coursera for free, and it takes you through the entire book. And there's supplemental readings and more on studies that he mentions in the book. So if you really wanted to kind of break down the book, the Coursera course is really wonderful, and it's split into two parts if I'm remembering correctly. So there's like a part 1 and a part 2. Really great book. What a Plant Knows. Highly recommend this book. It's wonderful. I have it full of little papers for for bookmarks, like in different parts here. I have here. Yeah, I even have this little piece of paper here for this chapter, because there's some like really notable yeah, here. So this was such a good book, and it's a quick read. Really great book. And this is a book I'm currently going through, and because I really love plant fossils, and I have quite a few plant fossils here. And maybe that would be something of interest. I can do a whole class talking about kind of like fossilized plants, if that would be of interest. But yeah, this is a really great book. So A History of Plants in 50 Fossils, and just talks about these 50 types of fossils and kind of what they tell us about plants, about how they've developed. So like here's a cross section of a cone, a fossilized cone. So super cool. This is a really great book. Again, A History of Plants in 50 Fossils by Paul Kenrick. Paul Kenrick. Really, really great book. And yeah, so I have quite a few plant fossils. I love this one, which is the petrified wood. So mineralized wood. So this was part of a trunk. And this is a cross section of that trunk, and it was polished. So super, super beautiful. You could see the rings. This side was not polished, so you can't see anything. But here you could see the middle where the heartwood would be. absolutely beautiful, and the bark. So it's completely mineralized. So fossilized wood. So absolutely love this. Um, and then this is a fern. And I was reading more about how this is formed. And so this isn't the fern itself that's fossilized, but rather the imprint. So these are like pieces of slate. And so essentially when they form, it's like layered, it's very layered. And so they come off kind of they kind of flake off. And when um, the ferns were kind of caught, kind of buried, right? And then these formed into these layers. Um, it's a chemical reaction that basically caused their imprint to be saved on the actual slate itself, and it kind of leaves this imprint. It's like a stamp. It kind of gets stamped essentially, and it's super neat, and it's on both sides. So there's one here, and then there's these here. So super cool. And there's different species of the fern that got kind of trapped in here. So really cool to see. Yeah, so I have a bunch of pieces like this. um and I've been kind of researching to do like a whole class on like fossils of plants. And then here I have this little display case here full of fossils. um that is a willow in there, a willow leaf. Let me see, how do I open this thing again? Here we go. And this is a fossilized pine cone. This is a fossilized pine cone. Let's see what else I have in here. Yeah, and so this is that willow leaf. This is a they call it a devil's pod. It's it's a type of water chestnut. But these are the seeds, and they're very pointy, as you can see. So it's a nightmare to step on these along the beach. It's in fresh water, so it'd be like along the side of a lake or a river. But yeah, they call them bat pods, they call them devil pods because they kind of look a little diabolical. And of course, they'll stab the crap out of your foot. So but this is a really cool seed pod. I've had this guy for a little bit. And then this is one of my more favorite fossils, which so it came like this in this rock, like that. And then when you open it, it reveals this fern inside of it. And they fit perfectly. So I really like this one because it just fits perfectly together. So I have them here. But yeah, I have quite a few. So that can be a potential topic. Let me see. And Marianne, sure, a pest on your hydrangea. Absolutely. Let me check. Marianne. Let me see where. It logged me out of my email. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. Logging in. Oh, wow, Jamie, thank you so much. I just saw Jamie sent me some amazing photos from the pop-up, the Equigenera pop-up in Chicago. Um, okay, here we go. Looking at the pest, it's loading the image. Ooh, interesting. So this, folks, is what we're looking at. So I think this might be some type of scale insect. Um, that is interesting. That looks like maybe some type of scale. Um, wow. So scale insects, as they molt and they secrete kind of like a waxy substance, um, and they kind of like lock themselves into a space. Kind of looks like that. I don't think it's an egg case. Yeah, kind of looks like that. I think it's might be scale, just based on the way it's looking like. Um, now a good thing with scale is that it is something that you could very easily remove. So what you could do is I mean, if you're not comfortable with your hands, you can put on some gloves, but you can kind of hose down the plant, and you can kind of go in there and just kind of rub them off. So you should be able to. You can also do it with a damp paper towel, and kind of use that to kind of wipe them off. So you should be able to. Scale, it can get kind of fastened on there. But for the most part, you should be able to kind of just wash it right off, kind of wipe it. It's like a combination of washing and kind of manual removal. Um, but you know, it's one of those pests that it requires a little bit more physical labor, right, to remove it. But then it's a little bit better than something uh like thrips, even white fly, because white fly can fly away and can end up getting right back on your plant. Um, but yeah, like aphids you can hose down, and very similarly with scale, you can just kind of wipe it off. So that looks like that very much looks like it might be some type of scale. Um, So I wouldn't panic too much. What they basically tend to do is that they basically kind of stick like a suction cup kind of like to a location, and it's always along the veins. And so being that they are right around along the veins, um, then they have like a straw like proboscis, and so they kind of like jam themselves in there and kind of stay put and kind of just suck out all the sugars, the sugar water out of your plants. Um, but again, it's something that you can remove just like very rather easily. Um, so I wouldn't panic too much. Um, so you should be able to. If you can kind of go through the leaves, check the bottoms as well as the tops. They usually will hang out at the bottom of the leaves, and they might also be on the stem, especially in the nooks. So like let's pretend this is your stem, and here is the petiole to the leaf. So this is a whole other leaf. They like to hang like in those little nooks. And so I would recommend kind of going through the stem as well. Something that might help, I mean, there are like horticultural oils that you can use. So they're specifically meant for plants. Um, so they're not as thick as something like olive oil or neem oil that can actually end up like kind of like stocking up, plugging like the stomata in your plants. Um, but there are some horticultural oils and things like that that might end up being helpful. Another thing you can potentially use are some type of systemic pesticide. So a systemic is something that you would apply to the plant and then it makes the plant poisonous. So just make sure it's not a plant you're planning on consuming at any time. So definitely not like your vegetables or anything like that that you would be eating. But if it's just like your hydrangeas, you can try to find there's a great brand, Captain Jack's Dead Bug, I think is what it's called, which is great. And you can apply it to the plants. I would do a test spot just to double check it doesn't burn any of your leaves. But usually it tends to work pretty well, and you spray down the plant, and it's kind of soaked into the tissues. So when these pests try to basically suck the plant, juices out of your plant, they get poisoned. It's kind of like how like the flea and tick medicine on dogs and cats, and then if they get bit, the tick or the flea will die. It's kind of like that. So they're called systemic pesticides. Um, yes, Deanna's asking, does the scale insect reproduce on the plants? Oh, absolutely. That's why I would recommend either with kind of following up with a systemic or a horticultural oil, because young scale plant, like the babies, young scale can be kind of translucent. So the adults are much more visible, right? So you can kind of wipe them off and you give it a good hosing down. But that doesn't mean you get all of like the egg casings or that you get all of the young that might have been able to kind of survive the onslaught of water and things like that. They're very hard to see. You start to kind of see, they start to kind of develop color because they're very translucent or sometimes green. So it's super hard to see. And then as they develop, they get much mature. That's when they start really getting like opaque, right? So they get more color. So you're gonna want to follow up after kind of manual removal, because if not, it's gonna keep coming back. So it's like a systemic. Now, if you don't want to use pesticides, you rather not use horticultural oils or anything like that, you could try to see if you have a wholesale seller locally that sells native ladybugs. So ladybugs, but again, that they are native. You do not want to purchase ladybugs that are from Asia or like the Asian lady beetles or any like non-native species. But then what you could do is, if you do find someone that happens to sell native ladybugs, you can release them onto the plant and they will eat. They will happily eat the scale. They'll eat aphids, they'll eat mealybugs, and then you don't have to worry. You can just release them and they will eat everything. You don't have to worry about that. Linda, sure, yeah, rubbing alcohol spray after scale removal, absolutely. You can also spray them with alcohol, and then wet a paper towel and kind of get them off. Sometimes you might need to use your nail, or if you don't want to use your hands, because some folks, I understand, don't want to touch them in any way. You can use like a needle or something like that to kind of flick them off. So you could do that if you really don't want to like touch them in any way, even with a glove, you're not comfortable. But rubbing alcohol definitely helps. Yes, absolutely. You can use rubbing alcohol as well. You can also do like a spray after you've cleaned the plant if you wanted to spray the plant with some rubbing alcohol. maybe with hydrangeas, I would dilute it, because especially if they're outside in the sun, it might be a little bit more at risk for burning. Again, I've sprayed rubbing alcohol on all my plants, on ferns, on begonias, on like Pelias. I've never had any burning, but I do know that if it's outside, exposed to direct sun, that might not be a great thing. So, but yeah. Oh, so Marianne says, thank you. It's a cutting, but I will check the main plant. Definitely check the main plant, just to double check. So Deanna's asking, what are some of the other insects that the ladybugs will eat? Yeah, so mealybugs, scale. So mealybugs are in the scale insect family, but they tend to work a little bit differently. So they're kind of in their own little bubble. But yeah, the mealybugs, scale insects. I mean, they can eat thrips, but that's not usually their main forte. Aphids as well. So if you happen to get aphids, aphids can be really annoying, but they're one of the easier things to get rid of because you could literally rinse the plant off, wash the aphids away, and then you're fine. So that's probably like one of the easier pests to get is aphids. Just you can even put like a spray bottle with a couple drops of dish soap. Just make sure it's non-degreasing dish soap. So you want to use something like Castile soap or like is it Dr. Myers or Mr. Myers, the Myers brand of the soap. So basically you want to make sure that it's non-degreasing because plant leaves, even if they don't look very glossy, they do have a top layer of like a wax coating called a cuticle, which sounds like our nail cuticles. So it's kind of like that. It protects it. And a degreasing dish soap, something like Dawn or like the Power Wash kind of dish soap, that can actually break down the oil, the cuticle wax, and the purposes of this coating is to protect the plant from burning or pests, infection, things like that. And so you definitely don't want to purposely remove any of that. So you want to use a degreasing dish soap. And yeah, just put a couple drops with and then fill the rest up with water, and you can spray the aphids, let it sit for a couple minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. It's the soap, they'll not like that, but it'll kind of loosen them up, and then you can hose out down the plant. So it's very, very easy to do with aphids. So I would rather that. Oh, I actually I have to talk to my neighbor. So we have here, if you're in New York City, even along the East Coast, you might know about the spotted lanternflies that are kind of moving in here, and they have yeah, they're becoming more and more common. I'm trying to see because I had taken a picture. So my neighbor has grapevines, and let me see, it was in there we go. So my neighbor has grapevines, and Brian and I were walking, and I looked over at his grapevines, and I said, "Those aren't what I think they are they?" And I posted it onto a Facebook group for confirmation, and it was confirmed. So these are all over my neighbor's vines. So this is a picture of my neighbor's grapevine, and these are the bugs that are on it. So these are the larval stage of the spotted lanternfly. So they turn red after this with some spotting, and then they develop their wings. So this is my neighbor's grapevine. So I need to tell him that it was confirmed and that he needs to try to kill them. And as Linda put, kill them on sight. Yes. So these are a very big they can damage not only people's personal gardens, but they're also doing a lot of damage to crop yields, right? So we don't want them. We don't want them. And as much as I love insects, I don't like killing insects, but I do understand that, you know, this is a very real threat to our ecosystem. And so we do have to unfortunately obliterate these on site. So here in New York City, there's like a notice that if you see them, you have to squash them. Now, this is my neighbor's vine, and it's like here's like it's like a tall brick wall, and then he has the vines. So I had taken a picture and then zoomed in, and because I was like, what are those black spots all over his vines? And this is what was on them. So these unfortunately have to be killed. Our building has a backyard, and we do have some grapevines, and so I have to go check them. I'll probably go later today or tomorrow and just give them a look and see if there's any on there. Hopefully not. If there is, I mean, I have to kill them, so I'll go prepared with a spray bottle with some soap and water and alcohol. And I have a bug zapper for the flying ones. We did that last year, Brian and I. We have a tree of heaven, which is a non-native tree growing in the backyard. And it's not our building, so we can't cut it down. But it's one of their, you know, foods of choice. It's like a host plant for the spotted lanternfly. So there were so many lanternflies on that tree. And we had the bug, it looks like a tennis racket. And so as they would start to fly, we were trying to get as many as possible, so that they wouldn't be laying eggs on the tree. But holy moly, that was there were so many. I did not think that there would be so many. I'm trying to think, I might have saved one. Hold on, because I have a box here with like some preserved specimens here. Yeah, my house is like a museum. I've had my brother, one of my brothers, my youngest brother said that. He was like, it's like a museum. I was like, yeah. Ah, yes, I did. So I want to put it like on a needle, so that I can preserve it a little bit better. But here we go. So this is the spotted lanternfly. It has a really pretty red on the bottom, as you can see. So they kind of look pretty bland until they open up their wings, and then it's red. Really pretty. But yeah, I have a couple things in here that I come across, like here we go, that I really want to preserve better. Like I have this bumblebee, and I just found him in by the stoop right in front of the house. But I want to set these up kind of like on a little needle in a little dome, to kind of have them nice and preserved. Yeah, I have a bunch of things here. The velvet foot mushroom. So I have like dried out mushroom species in here. I have seed pods, insects, very odd things in here. Oh yeah. And this too. This was really cool. here. This is a pre-mantis. So this was preserved. Super cool. So it's in my box of insects. I love the color. It's so pretty. So again, I have them in this little box, like a glass bamboo box. But I want to put them into something different. Let me see what else. Something that might be of interest. Oh, I have dried pitchers from pitcher plants. So these are pitchers from this is Nepenthes alata. So these were like these tiny little pitchers from the pitcher plant, and I dried them out, and they dried out really, really well. So they had snapped off of my alata, and then I preserved them, and so far so good. So I have these, and then I have some from a bigger pitcher plant as well. There we go. Really cool looking. But yeah, so I have it's this really cool box with these chambers. um and so yes, like a natural, yeah, it's like a natural history museum. Yeah, it's so I have like a bunch of weird things like that. And I love this box because then I'm able to keep them. I think, oh, and uh this is just a molt. So I was talking earlier about how insects and just invertebrates, a lot of the like arthropods, so like insects, arachnids, they can molt. They basically take off their exoskeleton. And I have tarantulas. I have pet tarantulas, and so I put one of their molts in here, and I love it. So this is a shed of the tarantula. So he basically they take off, well, she takes off her exoskeleton, and so then it's left just like this. So it definitely freaks you out sometimes if you go to grab your tarantula's cage and it looks like there's two tarantulas in there. And you're like, oh wait, no, it's just the molt. But it keeps the color. It also keeps the fangs. So you could see her fangs right there, those black, it's kind of getting the light. Pretty large fangs there. Yeah, and so I have that in the box here, along with a bunch of other things here. I have a bunch of like seed pods, like beech nuts. So yeah, I really recommend if you can find these types of like little yeah, if you can find these little types. I got this at Lots Less. It's like a dollar kind of store thing. And it's a bunch of little chambers, and it comes with two. So this is my little box of weird things. I even have here the fake plants that stores glue on actual living cacti. So like I again, this is like for learning reasons that I'm saving these, but these are like the plastic ones, and look at the glue. So they had this on a cactus. You could just see the hot glue, how it just hardened, and it was just on the cactus. So this was plastic, but I grabbed, I think there was a yellow one and there's a pink one as well. But then they also do these actual flowers. Forgot what they're called. Something like straw flower or something like that, but it's not like real straw flower, but it's a common name. But they put these types of flowers as well. And what's really interesting is that these are dried out, but they do react to humidity levels. And so it does appear to open and close. It's super cool. It still does it, even though it's not attached to anything, it's dried. It will kind of look like it's open, and then it'll look like it's closed. I'm gonna try to get the actual name of it. But this was glued onto a cactus. And so, yeah, they still do this. So cool. And so I have it in here as well. Yes. Oh, yes. And what's so sad is cactus flowers are actually very, very beautiful. Um, they're just ephemeral. They kind of last for some cacti, it will last 24 hours. For some other like mammillaris, it might last a couple days. And then the flower will go. But the reasoning that, these sellers are saying is just that it makes the cactus look much more pretty. And a lot of people are deceived. They don't realize that that's not a real flower. Even the plastic ones, they kind of see it and they're not really looking at it, so they assume it's real. And yeah, and then I had one client whose cactus was dying. It was just dying. But of course the flower was glued on, but it was one of those fake, sorry, not the plastic flowers, but the dried flowers that are stuck on. And they were like, well, it's still flowering. So I don't understand. I was trying to explain to them that that's not how they flower. So a lot of cacti, what they do is that there's like a little peduncle. So basically, think of it like a little tentacle that kind of, it might be really short and some are a lot longer, but there's like always a little peduncle and then the flower comes out. It doesn't just bloom right off of the cactus like that. So it's very unfortunate, but sellers swear by it, that it makes people buy more of their cacti. So yeah, but I definitely, want to do that. Are there any specimens on your wish list? Oh yeah, tons. In terms of plant specimens and, like insects and things, of course. And I definitely, I'd love to try to see if it's possible. I don't even know if it's possible I want to see if I can collect different types of pests to preserve. So I kind of have like a little template of of different pests. But yeah, no, in terms of like plant specimens or just yeah, in terms of like insect specimens or things like that, I mean, I'd love to get like different types of bees. I definitely want an orchid bee. So they're this beautiful blue, like metallic blue bee. I'd love to have a specimen of that. But yeah, in terms of plants, I mean, anything wacky. I've been trying to find bundle of sticks. I've been trying to find that, but I haven't had any luck where I've tried to purchase them. They say, oh yeah, we can try to order it for you. But and what really saddens me is that I saw it was last summer. I saw it at a shop, and I instantly regretted not buying it. And then when I went back, it wasn't there anymore. And I asked them, I said, do you ever happen to get these anymore? And they're like, no. It was kind of like it was the only pot in the entire store. And I regret not buying it. But yeah, that definitely happens. Where I walk out of a store and instantly regret not having the plant with me. Linda, have you ever seen the process of shedding? More on the beginning stages. So you would freak out if you have a spider, if you have a tarantula, yeah, they will lay on their back. So sometimes some tarantulas will create a hammock. So they'll basically do some webbing and it kind of looks like a little bed, and then they lay back on it because they're very vulnerable in that state. They're very soft. When they come out of the shed, they actually have to harden. And so they'll create a little hammock. I've had tarantulas where they would go underground to molt, so you can't really see them, but you can kind of, if you use the flashlight, you see that they're upside down, or they're just upside down. And then it looks really freaky because you're afraid, you're like, is it dead? But it's a lot of twitching. Um, and yeah, they lay on their backs and then they start the process. So I haven't seen the tail end, so like I haven't been there when they're just getting it off of their legs, because they literally pull themselves out. um but I've seen a lot of the time lapses of it. I've never done one myself, um but that'd be something cool to do if I can catch them doing it. And yeah, it's cool, but then you can't touch your tarantulas after that. You want to wait a few days. They'll harden off and then it'll be safe, and then I can go and get the molt as well. I try not to really stress them out right after a molt. So if I see the molt in there and they're kind of, you know, being a little skittish, I'll wait. My old tarantula Venom that I had for 17 years, she passed away last year. She had a habit of destroying her molts. So she would molt and then I guess she would get territorial. So she would start just ripping it up. And so you would just find like legs and things like that around her tank, because she was destroying them. Aura is asking, can you tell me why my syngonium leaves are curling? Absolutely, yeah. So usually with syngoniums, they tend to show you rather quickly if they're suffering from some type of dehydration. So with syngoniums, they are thirstier plants. So just as they're kind of starting to dry, you might notice that the leaves will start to slightly curl. They might become a little limp as well. They kind of look like they're kind of fainting. And that's a great indicator if it's thirsty. However, syngoniums, because they're thirstier, sometimes folks might overwater them, thinking that you know, that they're just really thirsty. And one problem it can happen is root rot. And so what happens with root rot is if the roots are rotting away, basically they can't take up water. And so this can in turn cause the plant to look dehydrated. So I would take a look, try to see if how long has it been since you've watered the plant. If it's nice and dry, then you could give it a good bottom water. But if you just recently watered, and it's still looking like that, or it's looking progressively worse since you've watered it, I would advise to take it out of the pot and give its roots a closer look, just in case you might have some root rot. So they will tend to curl because of that. So a lot of plants, syngoniums is a great example, Scindapsus, even pothos. What they'll do is that they'll curl in an effort to kind of hold in more moisture. And so, because a lot of that excess humidity is released from the back of the leaf, so it'll coil and it kind of traps in that humidity. And so one reason why they curl. Also, they're losing that turgidity, so like a rigidity caused by having water in them. So so they'll start to also curl that way. They can be saved, absolutely. So once the plant's rehydrated, it will uncurl and go back to being in a flat kind of state. So they can be saved, absolutely. If it's not like yellow and curled, and it's just green and curled, usually, yeah, you can totally bring it back, no problem. So great if you bottom water. So just if you recently watered, like in the last couple days, and it's looking like that, and it's not, you don't have it like in a place where it's you know, it's drying at a really, here it goes my voice, it's not drying at a crazy rate, and then I would be very mindful to check those roots just in case. Suman Puri, how when do you repot an orchid? Oh, great question. So well, it depends on the type of orchid. If you're talking about like a phalaenopsis, you want to be very careful. Because a lot of phalaenopsis that are sold in stores, they put them in soil, which they shouldn't be in soil. So a phalaenopsis orchid, a moth orchid, they shouldn't be in soil. There are types of orchids that are terrestrial, but if this is not a terrestrial orchid and this is an epiphytic orchid, that means that it grows in trees. You would want it to be more so in something like orchid bark. So something that is very airy, lets air in, and it's not like soil so that it'll start rotting. Um, in terms of when to repot, it's really if it's just very obvious that let's say you do have it in orchid bark, or some people have them in sphagnum, and it's very tight, where you're starting to see that the roots are becoming compressed, then yes, you can absolutely kind of give them a slightly larger pot. I recommend clear pots with orchids. It's just much easier to see their roots that way. So if you can find like those clear pots with drainage holes, or even like you can get one of those like plastic cups, like the party cups. I use those too. And I basically just use a soldering iron and I make holes on the bottom, and then they make really great clear pots. And so I would definitely recommend that with your orchid. But yeah, sometimes the roots will look like they're getting compressed, like it's just looking like it's really getting tight in there. And so then yeah, you can totally repot. Otherwise, if the roots are pretty sparse in the substrate, but then there's like a bunch of roots that look like a octopus on top, that doesn't mean that it needs to get repotted. They get aerial roots, and so it might look a little crazy, but but it's fine. But yeah. Oh yeah, you're very, very welcome, of course. Oh gosh, okay, it's 1:13, so I'm gonna hop off. I think I might lay down for a little bit before I dive into more work today. But thank you so much. I really love starting off my Mondays with all of you. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday and the rest of your week. Um, yeah, I'll put together a class for I was thinking about doing a class on maybe on Kalanchoe's on Monday. Um so I'm thinking about doing a class on Kalanchoe's. So just talking a little bit more about that species and some of my favorites, how to take care of them, and then of course taking questions. So might do that. Or I might do a botanical Latin now that I'm seeing that folks are interested in. So let me know. Let me know. And I can do either Cal and Coes, I can do botanical Latin. Um, but yeah, so I hope this was interesting. Sorry, I'm kind of moving a little slower today. Um, but thank you so much for tuning in, and yeah, I look forward to touching base next week. So please stay safe and all of you stay healthy. so so thank you so much, everyone, and have a great one. I think I'm gonna go take a little nap for for maybe an hour or so. And yeah, I feel like so drained. Um but all right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great one. Bye for now.